Hey guys, yeah, I'm doing this uncut, unscripted, and on the fly, but I wanted to come on here and talk about crossovers that you wouldn't expect to happen. Now, getting to the point, Hasbro is one of those companies that has not really yet utilized utilized basically the properties that they have a license to or that they own to do major crossovers in. I mean, you would think being around for as long as they have and the various properties that they own or have licenses to, they would make that happen. The closest that I know that they've ever made that happen was in the Transformers Generation 1 Season 3 episode, Only Human, where basically a character called Old Snake, who is Cobra Commander, helped a villainous businessman take the essence of the Autobots, basically mold them into humans, or basically take it out of the bodies, which resulted in them becoming human, the chemical basically turning them into humans. And then we hear at the end Old Snakes shout out Cobra. And if that's not enough, there's another character in Season 3 of Transformers Generation 1 called Marissa Fairhorn, who we find out just by seeing an image of her father one time in one episode, is basically the daughter of Flint and Lady J. Thus, those two characters, Old Snake, aka Cobra Commander, and the co-starring kind of secondary character of Marissa Fairhorn, being connected to G.I. Joe, thus connecting both universes into one. But that would be the closest we'd ever get to any crossover between Hasbro brands. It wouldn't be till later on when Hasbro would acquire other properties that we'd start seeing maybe the possibility of crossovers occurring. And it really wouldn't be possible until IDW came around and we saw more crossovers in comic book form occur. Now I know some people will say, well, Marvel Comics and Dreamwave, they did crossovers as well. Yeah, but that was primarily between G.I. Joe and Transformers because of what I mentioned earlier. Well, at least tied to that in some capacity. But as I said, it wouldn't be till later on when they would make a deal with IDW that we would start seeing more crossovers potentially happening and becoming reality. Now, here's what's interesting about this. One of the properties that Hasbro has a stake in, has a bit of ownership in, and licensing to, is Ghostbusters. They have a licensing to it, easy for me to say, because they produce the toys. So, with that said, it was only natural that they would do a Transformers Ghostbusters crossover story in IDW, and thus do an Ecto-1 Transformer Autobot and an Optimus Prime in the color scheme of Ghostbusters to tie into it. But, speaking of other crossovers, one crossover that occurred was basically Hasbro's answer, I guess, to Marvel creating a cinematic universe. Because there's also rumor going around that Hasbro wants to take that same step and make a cinematic universe of their own, starting with the upcoming Snake Eyes movie, which is G.I. Joe. Now, some would say they already did that with Bumblebee, but I think Bumblebee was laying the foundation. Snake Eyes, I think, from what I understand, is when it's supposed to really take off. But, as I mentioned, Hasbro wanted to have a piece of that pie, so they went to IDW, and IDW basically took all the Hasbro licensed and owned properties and brought them together in this crossover called Revolution. This, of course, featured the Transformers, it featured G.I. Joe, it featured Rom the Space Knight, which was a newly acquired property for Hasbro, and it featured Mask, which was originally owned by Kenner, which got bought out by Hasbro, and Micronauts, which is a Hasbro property as well. They basically were all brought together into one story, which I guess is the equivalent or the answer by Hasbro to Marvel's cinematic universe or many of their major crossovers which inspired the cinematic universe for the MCU. However, though, Revolution would just be the first of many major Hasbro crossovers. The next one upcoming, believe it or not, from what I understand, in the next month or so, because it got rescheduled from this month to next month, is Friendship in Disguise between Transformers and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Which even a lot of people I've mentioned this to have said kind of doesn't make sense, but I'm assuming the story is going to help make it make sense when you read it. But speaking of My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, they are at the center of all this when it comes to crossovers, not just because of what they're doing with Transformers, but because of what Hasbro is going to be doing later on. See, Hasbro has made the announcement that coming out real soon are many collector edition or collective editions of My Little Pony that are crossover collections. I think that's what they call it. They call it the crossover collection, and these are all My Little Pony inspired characters. And what am I talking about? Well, I'll show you. So here we have Princess Luna. This is a My Little Pony figure, right? One of the newer ones they brought out last year. So here is Chromia, one of the new War for Cybertron figures brought out to tie in with the new limited Netflix series. Now you would say, well, what do these two have to common together besides being created by Hasbro? How about the fact that, if you see it on the screen, there's your answer. We have My Little Prime coming to toy shelves real soon. That's right. We have a crossover collection edition of Optimus Prime as a My Little Pony character. And from what I could tell, and I'm going to pull one of these out right now real carefully. This is my Funko Celestia. From what I could tell, it's basically in the same, it's sculpted almost in the same kind of size, maybe a bit bigger, as my Funko Celestia. And it looks like it's a kind of a, its style basically is a hybrid. Its style is kind of a hybrid of what the Funko figures look like, what the later G4 figures look like, and what the original G1 figures of My Little Pony look like, thus tying it all together. It's got elements of all different pony designs pony figure designs when it comes to it. But yeah, it's basically about the size of a Celestia, maybe a bit bigger. And speaking of Celestia, I'm going to keep her right here. She's not the only character. Now, like I said, they're probably about this size, and this size, basically, when you look at it. So they're basically about this size, kind of in between. But My Little Pony is not, but Transformers isn't the only figure being released as part of this crossover collection series by Hasbro when it comes to My Little Pony. No. There's another one as well. In fact, they call this one Plasma Main. Yeah, Plasma Main, because it's a crossover between My Little Pony and Ghostbusters. Yeah, Ghostbusters. You think Transformers was going to cross over with them and get a figure? Think again, because guess what? So is Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is also getting a crossover pony with them called Plasma Main. Yeah. And again, it's about the size of a Celestia, maybe a bit bigger. It's basically in between the size of a Celestia and the Luna figure I just showed you. But they're not the only ones. Now, unfortunately, due to religious reasons, of course, respectfully, there's another property that they're crossing over, and that's D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, which I'm sure Josh Scorcher, aka Firebrand, is excited about because it's going to be a set. It's called, but they don't call it Dungeons and Dragons, they call it Cutie Marks and Dragons, or something like that. Excuse me there. Which is really interesting, and it comes in a pack. Now, this might be the only figure, this might be, I should say, the only part of the collective series, the crossover collective series, that I don't get due to what it's crossing over with. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's the one I'm not going to probably be able to get because of what it's crossing over with. However, there is another one that it's My Little Pony's crossing over with. And I'm sure Linkara, and I'm sure Andre, Black Nerd Comedy, Andre Meadows that is, are excited about this. Because you know what? And you know who I think is also excited?
See.
let me look here for a second. I'm trying so I can remember the name. Look up the history. But you know what I think is also excited? How about Blaze Winter? Yeah, Blaze Winter on YouTube. In case you don't know who they are, Blaze Winter is known for putting together these Power Ranger inspired intros with My Little Pony Friendship is Magic based around the Power Ponies episode that they did in season 4. So by doing that, basically she's creating a Power well, basically Blaze Winter, what they're doing, or what they've done, is they create these intros that are Power Ranger inspired, but instead of using Power Ranger like imagery, like I think some people try to do, instead they're using their own effects. They're using imagery from the Power Ponies. Basically, when the Power Ponies first get introduced, or the main 6 get introduced as the Power Ponies and stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure Blaze Winter is really excited about this crossover because My Little Pony is crossing over. If I can get them both up here, with Power Rangers. Yeah, they're crossing over with Power Rangers. And the character is called the Morphing Pink Pony. Yeah, the Morphing Pink Pony. And again, it's about the size it's around between the size of these two, just a bit bigger, if you will. It's about that size. Like I said, it's kind of in between the size of that of the Celestia Funko and the Luna figure I have right there, but it's almost kind of in the veins of G1, basically a G1 style. That's what it is. In fact, let me show you what I mean. You see, here it is. Well, actually, let me see. What do I got? Okay, so it's basically in the style of this. Basically, the designs are like this. Sorry, it's a little dusty and all that, so I do apologize. But it's basically in the style of these. Basically, these size. That's what it's kind of like. But it's definitely got a G4 Friendship is Magic inspired look to it. You can see that already. But yeah, Hasbro made the announcement that you can find at the AllSpark forums and Equestria Daily and other places. Has made the announcement that they're going to be crossing over all these properties with My Little Pony to produce crossover collective figures or ponies for people to purchase. So I could say this, in the long run, it definitely shows you the impact that MLP-FIM has had and continues to have to this day, especially with the fact that you have Hasbro making crossover collectible ponies, based on other properties. I mean, who would have thought you'd get a pony named Plasma Mane, which is a crossover pony of Ghostbusters and Friendship is Magic? Who would have thought you'd get My Little Prime, which is Optimus Prime in pony form? Who would have thought you'd get Pink Ranger Kimberly in pony form? Who would have thought you'd get freaking Dungeons and Dragons rechristened as Cutie Marks and Dragons in pony form? Nobody. Nobody would have thought that. And again, this is just the beginning of possibly more crossovers. I mean, look, like I said, we got this upcoming, if you can see it, we got this upcoming next month or within the summer. We had Revolution, which I showed you, where is it? We had this around last year or so, or 2 years ago, occur. So who's to say Hasbro doesn't have any more stuff in mind? Who's to say they don't have more things in mind for possible crossovers between MLP and other properties they may own? We might see an MLP freaking gem crossover. We might see an MLP mask crossover. We might see an MLP Micronauts. We might see an MLP Inhumanoids. Or any other licensed property they have to make toys out of. We may see it. But we'll have to wait and see. Heck, they might even talk with Marvel and say, hey, can we cross over MLP with some of your MCU stuff? Who's to say you won't get a Spider-Man or a Black Widow pony figure? I'm just saying. This is just to me, this is just the start. This is just the beginning. Right? Well, I'm pointing, you obviously don't see anything right here. I'm sorry about that. But again, stuff like this here, it's just the beginning, obviously. Hasbro obviously sees some big money between crossovers like this occurring. They obviously see it. And then, of course, like I say, the Dungeons and Dragons one, which I don't have. But again, they obviously see big money here. They know that the fandom is still alive. They know that. I mean, heck, I did a response video to Mad Munchkin in her review of My Little Pony the movie, which she played on the fact through her Mary Sue OC. It's 3 years later than usual, but she still did it. So the fandom is still there. Heck, AC Race Best has said that they still have more Bronies React videos to do, and they're looking at potential candidates for future ones, like the Season 1 finale, the Season 1 premiere, the series premiere. They're looking at possibly other ones, like Season 2, Season 3. The list goes on. But the thing is, the fandom is still strong, it's still kicking, it's still going. Heck, a lot of people are happy to see the Friendship is Forever thing up and going. Happy to know that Pony Life could be coming very soon. I mean, it's still there. I mean, the fact that you have the fandom going out of the way over the past month or so to put on conventions that normally people would attend in person, but put them on virtually online, from Ponyfest to Winnie City upcoming to BabsCon online. All this happening, yes, due to what's going on, but happening because of the fact that they still have a love for the fans. And they still have a love for the characters and for the franchise. So for Hasbro to take the step they're going to be taking with this, I'm all for it. I am all for it. But what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on MLP crossing over with Transformers for a collectible pony figure of Optimus Prime? What are your thoughts of them doing it with Ghostbusters, D&D, as well as with Power Rangers? What are your thoughts? And who else? What other crossovers do you think they could do? Heck, I forgot to mention, they could do freaking G.I. Joe. That'd be something. But what do you guys think? What other properties do you believe are possible to make into collectible crossover pony figures? Let me know down below. Because, let's face it, no one would have thought we would have gotten MLP and Magic the Gathering crossing over, did we? But we did. But let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Love to hear what your thoughts are on this whole news coming out of crossovers occurring. And I will talk to y'all later.